Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, August 5th. My name is Karen Bachman, and I'm so excited to be sharing garden harvesting tips with you today. In the comments, please let us know where you're watching from. You can interact with emojis. We'd love to learn what you've planted in your garden and what is thriving and what you'll be harvesting. So please let us know. Questions will be addressed at the end of the broadcast. I'm outside of our Victory Garden here at Bachman's on Lindale, and you can see a lot has changed in the 11 weeks since we originally planted it. This is actually one of my favorite times of year because you can really witness the amazing things that are happening in your own garden. You've worked hard at it. There's sort of this renewed purpose of being outside and connecting with nature, and now you can see the benefits of all of your hard work. There is truly such great satisfaction of bringing fresh flavors to your table. If your garden didn't quite turn out like you had hoped, it's okay. That's what next year is for. Be sure to take notes of what worked and what didn't work out so well, because we can only get better by learning more and trying more and new techniques. So when harvest time comes, it comes big time. And for every gardener, the challenge now might be to keep ahead of the tsunami of vegetables and herbs coming in. So today I'll be talking about harvesting, cleaning, drying, and storing the bounty from your garden. It's best now to take a basket or a trug out into your garden every day to see what has ripened. Picking vegetables as soon as they are ripe often encourages the plant to produce more. And most vegetables are at their peak of tenderness and flavor when they are relatively small. Zucchini, for example, are best when they are no more than 6 or 7 inches long. After that, they can become tough and woody. If you do discover an overlooked side of your garden, it's okay. It's happened to me. My kids personally think it's hilarious to bring out an 18-inch zucchini, but you can still do something useful with it. You can grate it and make zucchini bread and or cookies. It's really crucial to keep track of what you've planted and what the results are. At the beginning of the season, we encouraged you to keep a journal and to keep the seed packets of what you grew. There's a wealth of information, of course, on the seed packet that talks about the mature date of when you can harvest, and it's important to document the progress along with the yields that you're seeing. Also, when you do harvest, look for signs of trouble, such as yellowing leaves or rotting fruit, and remove those problem areas. Even if it is something that you can do little about, such as blossom end rot on tomatoes or cracking from too much rain, there's really no point in letting that plant put energy into fruit that you're not going to be able to enjoy. So I have a few tips for harvesting some common vegetables and bounty. Make sure that you have a trug, that you have some gloves, as well as a spade and a sharp pair of snippers. Those are all useful tools in making sure that you can harvest successfully. So, as far as herbs, we've talked about herbs a couple different times because you've been able to harvest previously, but now you might have a surplus. So, pinch back and cut herbs as frequently as you can to keep them producing more stems and leaves. This is going to keep them from blooming or bolting, as this changes the flavor. Just remember not to harvest more than 75% of the plants so you can continue to enjoy fresh flavors growing from your herb plants. Like I said, right now you likely have a surplus of many herbs, and if you're not adding herbs directly to your dishes, you can freeze or dry them. To dry herbs, you can do this by bunch drying. This is a really easy way to dry long-stemmed herbs such as marjoram, sage, mint, dill, rosemary. I actually have basil here. You can bunch your basil and you can cut the stalks a little bit longer and bunch them together with twine. You can tie twine just around the top of the bunch and rinse them in a solution of water and vinegar. As soon as possible, you want to take this herb bunch and hang them in a warm, dry place, which is well ventilated and not exposed to direct sunlight. By hanging them with leafy ends down, all of the essential oils from the stem are actually going to transition into the leaves, and that's where all of your flavor will be. Some people also like to put their bunches in a paper bag so they don't become dusty, depending on where you're storing your bunches. But quite honestly, freshly tied bunches of thyme, oregano, and basil are so beautiful. If you do put them in a bag, you can tie it again with twine, and then you'll want to cut out the bottom of the bag or punch some air holes in for some ventilation and drying. If you're freezing herbs, this is actually something my family loves to do because I love growing herbs. We simply take ice cube trays and we'll take freshly chopped herbs and olive oil and freeze them over time and continue to add them to a Tupperware inside of our freezer. So all of a sudden you have this fresh sort of Italian herb mix that you can add to your skillet in the fall and winter time. You can also freeze herbs in water. This actually works well for basil, chives, mint, lemon balm, and tarragon. Remember though, when you're unfreezing the herbs, they're going to look limp because they've been frozen. They're still suitable for cooking and full of flavor, but they are probably not as suitable for garnishes because they look just a little bit different. All right, let's move on to vegetables. Tomatoes specifically. I know a lot of our friends here at the garden center are seeing their tomatoes come ready to harvest. And tomatoes are generally fully ripe when they release from the stem, from the vine, quite easily. If you misjudge a bit, it's not a great tragedy because tomatoes will ripen somewhat after picking just on the countertop. Tomatoes will develop the fullest, sweetest flavor if they ripen in the sun on the vine. So just be sure to check your tomato plants often. Some of your tomatoes that you've planted are determinate types, and that means that they'll stop bearing fruit after a couple weeks. And others are indeterminate, and they'll keep flowering and setting forth fruit until that plant is killed by frost. Please bear in mind, though, that cooler weather will slow production of indeterminate tomatoes. As far as peppers are concerned, these are mature and ready to eat when they're full-sized, but still green. If left on the vine longer, they'll change their colors to red, orange, and yellow, depending on their variety. And they'll actually deepen in flavor when this happens, but they'll be less crisp in texture. As far as beans, this is another household favorite in my garden, is to pick the pods when they're a little shy of their maximum size. And be sure to pick them when they're tender with immature seeds. If you delay too much longer, your beans will mature and harden in the pod, and the seeds will be really quite tough. As far as melons are concerned, melons can be tricky even for melon farmers. You can thump a melon and listen for a dull, hollow sound, or sniff it to see if it smells sweet. In general, a ripe cantaloupe or muskmelon will begin to have a tan or yellowish color beneath its corky netting on its skin. A honeydew will feel smooth and not hairy, and a watermelon, where it sits on the ground, will turn yellowish rather than white or green. With melons, always be sure to cut the stem rather than breaking off the fruit, or breaking the fruit off, which could create a wound and invite the fruit to rot. You certainly don't want that to happen. So let the fruit ripen. Once you've cut it with the snippers or a knife, another day or two at room temperature on your counter for maximum sweetness. As far as root vegetables are concerned, read those seed packets before you start checking if your variety of carrots, beets, or turnips, or even radishes are ready. If you recall, we planted carrots in our victory garden 11 weeks ago, and we still need about another week to 10 days before we check to see what their status is. When it's about time, you can gently loosen the soil around your root vegetable and gently pull one up to see how big it is, and that will tell you whether you can harvest your crop or not. Root vegetables are more tender and delicate in flavor if eaten younger and smaller, so keep that in mind. And finally, a few things just about storing. Refrigerating your garden vegetables will slow down their metabolism and preserve them for eating in the near future. You can use ventilated bags, and you can insert a slightly moistened paper towel to keep them moist but not soggy. And if you're canning, have fun. This is actually one of my favorite things to do. Canning is an easy way to preserve highly acidic vegetables such as tomatoes and peppers. You can also preserve in brine, so think pickles, or you can preserve in syrup. Think fruit or sweetened relishes and chutney. And whatever you choose to do, you can share it with neighbors or other family members, but be proud of that harvest that you've worked so hard for. And you can always plan for your next garden, and you can actually have a fall harvest. So if you're planning, or if you're wondering what to plant next, fall gardening can really start now. Seeds for cool weather crops are in store. You can dig in and start carrots, radishes, beets, along with broccoli, peas, and beans for a bountiful harvest. So we hope that this information has been helpful for you today. Congratulations on your individual victory gardens or victory containers. We'd love to see those pictures, so please share them with us and enjoy the harvest. And we hope to see you in store or online at bachmans.com. Thank you and be well.